This episode of The Totally Rad Show is brought to you by Squarespace. Today on TRS, it's elementary, my dear Watson. We take a look at the British series Sherlock.
So today on TV, we're going to be talking about a new BBC series called Sherlock. Now, Sherlock is basically a modern retelling of the actual story of Sherlock Holmes. So unlike House, which some people say is sort of a take on Sherlock Holmes, this is actually Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson in 221 Baker Street solving crimes.
Yep.
In the Today Town.
Interesting interjection. Sherlock Holmes the character is based on a doctor that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle knew.
Interesting
so
fact.
Named House.
Named House. Gregory House.
Who lived in 2010.
So it's a flip-de-whipsies. So Sherlock stars Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock Holmes.
That is a name.
Martin Freeman from the UK Office.
And he's going to be
Dr.
Bilbo.
John Watson, and he's going to be Bilbo, which now that blows my mind. So Sherlock was created by Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss. Now Stephen Moffat was part of the recreation and the revitalization of the Doctor Who franchise.
You know who his mother is?
Little Miss?
I was going to say that too.
So, but Stephen Moffat also was the man behind taking the literary...
You didn't even play that up as a joke. You played that completely... Little Miss!
Yeah, Little Miss Moffat is Stephen Moffat's mom. You didn't know that?
She's smart.
So, Stephen Moffat was the guy who adapted the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde story to the series that we watched, which was Dr. Jekyll in a sort of
Jekyll.
now called Jekyll.
Or Jekyll.
And so, but also Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss are both writers on Doctor Who. Mark Gatiss wrote the Dickinson episode of Doctor Who. So these were two guys who were both writers working in Cardiff, living in London. And what happened was, as they were taking the trains to and from the set in Cardiff, they started talking about how they were so excited about using old literature and updating them, and they went, wow, wouldn't it be great if we took on the Sherlock Holmes story? And they bantered that around for months and months and months, and then finally, Sue Views, I think is her name, who's Stephen Moffat's wife, finally got the two together and just said, well, screw it, I'll produce it, let's just make this thing. And so here we now have 3 90-minute episodes that have been out and aired in the UK, are currently being aired on the BBC through Masterpiece Theatre right now.
2 have aired?
2 have aired, we're on the 3rd,
left.
but you can, until I think December 7th, I think you can watch them on the Masterpiece Theatre website, the PBS website, which is cool.
Living in for me.
And then the really cool thing is, if you notice, guys, at the end of the last, it's a little bit of a hangover. I mean, cliffhanger. A little bit of a
Cliffhanger over the top.
Cliffhanger over the top. Amazing.
Weekly callback.
Yeah, weekly callback.
That was.
But here's the thing:
Freudian
they are
slip.
going to be making 3 other episodes of 90 minutes each to sort of
Not
finish
for
out the
like
story.
a year.
It'll be about a year. So Daniel
season 1 and
Trachtenberg,
season
we saw
2.
season 1. A lot of hours of television. What did you think, sir? 4.5 hours of TV.
Let me know when this gets uncomfortable for you.
It's already passed. Well, you asked.
So, I thought the first episode was spectacular.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I loved the photography. I loved they do this cool thing with graphics where they have like. Basically, I know.
Is it an aneurysm?
I know it was weird.
Anyway, what was that? Where did everybody come from?
Where you can see when people get text messages instead of cutting to everyone's phone, you just see the text
So
on
elegant.
the
Yeah,
screen.
very nice.
But also you can see what Sherlock is thinking. Sometimes. But almost all the time in that first episode.
I agree.
And I loved that because it allowed me to do what you don't get to do in more Sherlock Holmes stories, tellings, takes in TV or in film, which is
Captain Alliteration
because you
over
get to
here.
play along a little bit. You get to like kind of, oh, okay, you get a chance to see if you can be as smart as that guy.
When he's looking at the first dead body and all the different points are coming up, like wet, dry, not wet, left-handed.
Totally. It was kind of what Guy Ritchie did with the fight sequences in Sherlock Holmes, the recent movie, where you saw how that intelligence happens in fight sequences and sort of it plays with time and you get to see what he's thinking before he does it. Yeah. This was doing even in the normal everyday deductions.
You're just standard normal everyday
So I really enjoyed that. However, I did have a problem. I did not get into the next 2 episodes. I enjoyed very little of. And I think
you didn't like that last episode with the calls?
Not really. It started to pick up towards the end.
Yeah.
But the monster of the weeks were not. What's so great about a lot of
There's only one.
Right.
There's only one monster of the week.
Right.
That's the second episode. That's really the only one.
And then the next one, the threat that they were trying to uncover, the mystery. What was so great about the first episode was that because it was an origin story, you really got to have some character development within the mystery, and I found that really lacking in the next 2 episodes.
Interesting.
And that's what's really the difficult thing with Sherlock Holmes is he really is a superhero. And kind of like the problems we brought up about with Superman, that because he's so overpowered, it's like there's not very little drama. So the drama really comes into digging into his personal life, which I think we would get in hopefully that next batch of episodes.
Interesting.
But I disagree. I thought
What did you think? Yeah.
I thought the strength of this take was that it did show him as having faults and having weaknesses, and his weakness is his brilliance. That he's a sucker for. He doesn't care about anything except the challenge in his mind, and especially at the end of that first episode where it's like, is he going to be so sure of his intellect that he will risk his own life?
Right.
You know, and that happens multiple times in the series. I thought this was phenomenal, stupendous, incredible. I've been begging you guys to watch it for weeks. I love this take on Sherlock Holmes. I love Stephen Moffat. I think he can do no wrong at this point. And it is such a brilliant lens through which we see these characters. It's almost if not having them in modern day seems odd now because it fits so well having Watson be a veteran of the Iraq War and having cell phones play into it and like technology does not take away from this character.
Yeah, right.
You know, I think Benedict Cumberbatch, in addition to having the best name in television, he gives a crackling performance as Sherlock Holmes. It is, you see him thinking constantly, and he is that irascible bastard who, just like doesn't understand how to deal with people and has no time for them because he's so much smarter than they are.
Yeah.
It's a character that's rough around the edges. I loved it, and the way they handle his arch nemesis Moriarty is so delicious and so.
Especially in that first episode,
I think especially in the third episode. Yeah. Oh God, I agree with you on one level, Dan. I think the second episode definitely is a dip, and it's because it feels a little Monster of the Week. It feels like the story for that week rather than the first and third, which feel like this much larger plot.
Yeah.
And even watching this made me feel like the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes. It makes it feel like a cartoon. Like I liked that movie when I saw it, but now having seen this Sherlock, it's like this is so far and above that effort that it's the definitive Sherlock Holmes for me now.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely thought it was amazing, and I'm really excited for the next ones. I fear that they're going to be the last sort of like Jekyll, and now we have to. I mean, the good news is there will be another thing.
Yeah.
Clearly, these people are making great TV. The thing that blows my mind, especially in the first episode, you just don't make TV like that in the States. You know what I mean?
It's like a film. It's like they made 3 films.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it really does dip in the second one, and even the beginning of the third one took me a while to get back into that. Oh my God, this could be the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. And I also felt like they really got away from that really cool, stylized looking at the deduction of what is happening that they had in the first one. First one written by Stephen Moffat, the last one written by Mark Gatiss. I can't remember who in the middle wrote the middle one, so all 3 written by the different people. But I agree. I mean, overall, I too was like, oh God, it's modern day, and Sherlock Holmes, is this character going to be able to live and be believable in a modern situation? And I kind of agree with you. it makes it seem like, why do I want to watch the, frickin' whatever, the Victorian or whatever it was version of this, when I can have the guy who's looking stuff up on the cell phone?
Here's the thing.
You know what I mean?
I have one gripe with the modern day placement, or the way it was handled, or really what it sheds to light about Sherlock Holmes stories, that I never had a problem with it in the Victorian era, because I just accepted it. Life was more simple back then, or whatever it was. But in modern times, when he does his thing, when he's doing his deductions that blows people's minds and he can know things about you just from perceiving, I find it not exciting or interesting, because I feel like everything he says could have not been that way. Like he'll say, oh, well, he scratched his cell phone. Your brother's a drunk because the things like it could easily not have been that he's drunk that caused it. And many things, now that it's set in a setting where I'm very comfortable in, I get that it could be many different reasons that could cause that. And
but they acknowledge that by saying that, like, he had his sister and he was mad, he was guessing about the leg.
It's like this.
But more often than not, I find all those things as not cool. Like, oh, that's so smart how he deduced that. Now, and I want to say too, I did not enjoy Cumberbatch's performance as Holmes, because I found him very unlikable and not in a deliciously enjoyable way. Whereas Hugh Laury's take on House is a guy who's very distant and has his wall up, but not only is he really enjoyable to watch in all his prickly mannerisms, but he's also a guy that, because he's such a dick, you want him to do a good thing. You wish you could, if you were hanging out with him, you'd want him to like you. This guy, I don't even want to be around him.
Well, we have 3 more coming up. Let's see what happens.
In a year.
All right, make sure to stick tuned for This Day in Rad History. Daniel Trachtenberg, tell me about Squarespace.
So Squarespace sponsored today's episode, and I'm so happy they do these sponsorships, because they are really an awesome place to host your website, but also a place to create your website. We say they have the best WYSIWYG editor. I'm telling you guys, like, a lot of places offer that's, like, Yahoo has make a website with Yahoo. Mac has make a website with whatever. Yeah. I'm telling you, like, I've dabbled in all those, and I'm a guy who's very naive to, like, Squarespace is where it's at. It's so easy to do something that looks really cool. I do one cool thing a day.com there. My friend has a food blog called iflipforfood.com that they started on a Blogger thing. I don't want to say whatever thing they did, and they ported it all over very easily using Squarespace port over thing.
Amazing.
And
I believe that function is called Squarespace port over thing.
One click per day.
So if you head over to squarespace.com and put in the promotional code TRS, you will get 10% off the lifetimes of your orders.
Just pluralize it all.
Amazings.
Hey, this is a user-submitted background. You can have yours on the show by sending it to fans@totallyradshow.com.
Why would you not do that? Also, you can probably go to flickr.com/totallyradshow and check out this background as well as others.
Yay.
Amazing. See you tomorrow.
Don't miss tomorrow's show, where we return to play Versus.
So though today is November 11th, 2010, we want to talk about Friday, because we're not going to do a Rad History on Friday, November 12th, 1910, the first movie stuntman stunted in history. He jumped into the Hudson River from a burning balloon. So this
and
is
I believe
the
first quote was, "Did you get that? Were you rolling?"
So this is like 10 or 20 years.
It was also the first death of a stuntman.
This is like 10 or 20 years before Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd and all those guys that I know to be these like huge stuntman movie stars and predates Jackie Chan and all those. And here is 1910. I mean, movies were happening.
I was like, are you guys rolling? I'm going.
This is like 20 years after movies started happening. I think Birth of a Nation was around then.
It's also long enough ago that the Hudson River was swimmable.
Oh,
and not completely toxic.
So, a while back, 100 years ago.
This is literally 100 years ago.
Yeah.
More.
To the date. No, 1910. It's 2010.
Oh, wow. 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Dude, well, a moment of silence for that day.
He's probably still kicking.
Actually, it's tomorrow.
It is.
Damn it.